Time for real talk. Oh, what's going on? You're in deep thought over there, Socrates. It's happening in your brain.
Well, usually we rock out at the beginning, and I thought maybe this time I would enter the show with a little more dignity.
Oh.
Did it work?
Yes, I feel dignified.
Okay, we're all dignified today for once.
That didn't last very long. Hey,
enough of that.
Our real talk brought to us by New Life Community Church in Wellman, where he's the pastor. Aaron M. Fleming is his name. Look him up. He's famous.
My name is on the internet, but whose isn't? No, Steve often refers to me as Aaron M. Fleming because that's my author name. And I should say, my first novel is currently free on kind of a promotional thing. It's free on Kindle. So if you got an e-reader, go grab a copy of Kingmaker and then leave me a 5-star review, even if you didn't read it.
Yeah, exactly.
I would be honored if you would grab a free copy of my first book and check it out. And if you like it, give it a review. And if you don't like it, maybe don't give it a review. So, yeah, I am an author and a pastor and a dad and a husband and got my feet in a lot of fire. A lot of irons in the fire. My feet in a lot of fires. I hope I don't have a lot of feet in the fire.
Ow! Ooh, ow.
We are back today in our semi-dignified state to talk about gold medal living again. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24 says, "Do you not know that all of the runners go into strict training, but only one wins the prize? So run in such a way as to win the prize." So what I'm fascinated in is what are the ways, maybe not necessarily who like I'm not a Ricky Bobby guy. If you ain't first, you're last. If you run the race of life in the manner of a champion, then you are a champion. I mean, you don't have a gold medal, but at heart, which is what the kingdom of God is all about anyway. Like, we're here to talk about the heart. And at the heart level, God is looking for people who will run the race of life in the manner of a champion. And this is the fact that, well, we've both done some running. You've done some 5Ks and half marathons.
Yeah.
And like, when you get a PR, you're pretty pumped up, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Very exciting. How close to the world record in the half marathon is your PR?
What's the world record?
It's about 58 minutes.
Oh, well, I think my best ever half marathon time was like 2:05 or something like that. So
okay, so a little over 9 minutes.
I run my half marathon in the time that it takes an Olympian to run a full marathon.
Isn't that astonishing? That's just mind-boggling.
And to think, kind of to put it into perspective, you say how many hours and how much time people put in. I mean, that got me, all my hours of training got me to that point. How much more is an Olympian doing to get to their point of running so fast?
Yeah, so fast. Just bonkers how fast some humans can go. But here's the crazy thing. The dopamine response in your brain to running a PR is, and this is a scientific fact.
Okay.
The dopamine, like that feeling of accomplishment and yay, and I did it and all that good kind of stuff. It is the same for someone who breaks 2 hours for the first time as for somebody who breaks 1 hour for the first time.
Okay.
Or in the 5K, the world record guys are running 12:40 or 12:35, something crazy like that. Most of us casual runners, you get to a certain age, and if you're under 30 minutes, that's pretty good. I was actually at a road race one time, and I got to talking to a older gentleman. He had to have been like 70 or something. It was his first 5K.
Oh, wow.
And he told me, well, I'd really like to run an 11-minute mile pace. And so he knew I was a coach, and so he asked me some questions, and 11-minute mile would come out to about 34 minutes for a 5K. So I just gave him some advice, and he followed it, and he ran it in like 31:20.
Oh, nice.
He was so pumped.
Yeah.
So pumped. And then there were young men there who were trying to break 20, and they ran, 20 minutes and 12 seconds, and they were all disappointed.
Yeah.
It's the way that you run in life has to do with you maximizing your potential. And so that's going to segue me into a Bible story here, Steve. Are you ready for a Bible story?
Lay it on me.
All right. Many of our listeners are familiar with the book of Joshua. And if you're not familiar with the book of Joshua, it's kind of a fun read. Adventure and miracles and stuff like that. And so you can, like, if you don't have a Bible, there's a million Bible apps. And actually what I'm doing now is when I go on walks, I'm just finding Bible on YouTube, and some guy with a nice reading voice reads it to me while I exercise. So a million ways to access the Bible. But kind of one of the big stories at the beginning of Joshua is that God's people have to capture a city called Jericho. And what do you call the scientists who dig in the dirt, like Indiana Jones?
Like archaeologist type people? Or...
Archaeologists.
Right.
That's the word. Archaeologists say that Jericho may have been the oldest city in the world, founded like 10,000 BC or something. So it had been there for a while. 2 walls, thick, tall. Jericho didn't hang around that long because they didn't know how to defend themselves, right? So God's people have to capture this city, and they didn't know how they were going to do it. So Joshua, who's kind of the main character of the book of Joshua, he sends 2 spies to spy out the city. And they get there, and they end up at the house of a prostitute named Rahab. I don't know why they were there, but they were. And then the king of Jericho heard that there were some Israelites in town, so he sent some soldiers to try to catch them. And Rahab, who was from Jericho, right? She was not a friend of the people of God. She was not from the same country, not from the same tribe, had different gods, all that kind of stuff. She took these 2 spies and she hid them on her roof under some stacks of flax that were on the roof. And my understanding is that the way you make flax gets made into linen.
Okay.
Linen, yeah, which was like the nice cloth of the ancient world. It wasn't all scratchy like wool. So flax, you soak it with water and then you let it dry, and then the fibers come apart so that you can turn it into cloth. And flax is really stinky, apparently. Okay. So she hides these guys under these stacks of flax fibers, and so I think the idea there was not only were they invisible, but the soldiers would maybe go and look around on the roof and be like, "Ew, that stinks," and leave. And so she's like, "Oh yeah, the guys were here, but they left, and I think if you hurry, you might be able to catch them." So the soldiers
went that way.
Yeah, they went that way, and so they chase off after the guys who didn't go that way, and then she says some pretty incredible things. She says to these 2 guys, "I know that your God is God of heaven and earth. And so that is why I'm showing you kindness." And like, we know so much about God now that doesn't jump out at us as a surprise. But at that time, every different little town had its own God. And every river had a god. So like if you're going to cross the river, you probably better make a little sacrifice to the god so you don't drown in the river or whatever it is. There was the sun god and the moon god and then the wind god and the rain god and all these different gods. So for someone who knew nothing about the God of Israel to come out and say, "I know that your God is the God of heaven and earth," that was revolutionary. And so she asked for mercy from them. And then as the story goes, God miraculously caused the walls of that city to fall down, and then the Israelites were able to capture it, and Rahab and her family were saved. So where am I going with that? I'll tell you in just a moment. All right. The walls of the city fall down miraculously. And that means that whatever the spies saw was irrelevant.
Yeah.
They went to this city like their job was to be a spy and to like measure how thick the walls were and how tall the walls were and like were there some towers and how many archers did they have and was there a gate or was there like a sewer tunnel that went under the city that they could sneak into, or how many soldiers were there and did they have armor and like all the things the spies are supposed to do. And those guys went and did that job because it was their job. And at the end of the day, God took care of the walls of that city supernaturally. So all of their work that they thought that they went to that place to do was irrelevant. Their measurements of the thickness of the wall doesn't matter. They weren't going to knock those down with a battering ram. The height of the wall doesn't matter. They weren't going to build ladders to climb over those walls. None of that mattered. You would almost think that their work was a waste. But what they did do is they found the one person in that town who knew who God was. And they were able to rescue that person. And so let's bring this back to gold medal living. What does it mean to be someone who's living in a way, the way of champions? The way of champions in the kingdom of God is to like in a way you just put your head down and do your work. And you go see what there is to see, and you do what there is to do, and you do it to the best of your ability. And things don't always turn out the way that you think that they're going to turn out, right? Mm-hmm. Have we ever had any unexpected events in our lives? Oh my goodness. You look back and almost nothing in life turns out the way that you thought it was going to turn out.
Yep.
I don't know. I just think of some things. When I first got married, I thought I was going to have 2 kids. Ended up with 4. Other people think they're going to have 4 kids and then they have less, or they have 8 instead of 4. I don't know. I used to have a job where I filled vending machines. Mm-hmm. That was not what I set out in life to do. That was not what I trained for. That was not what I wanted. But at some point, that was what I needed to do. It's not where I saw my life going. So we can all see that there's so many unexpected things that happen in life. But if you will be a spy, for God, you will see things that you never thought you were going to see. And you will see God move in ways that you never imagined that God could move. And then in the end, everything works out.
Yeah. You ever think that you look back and think that you were being a spy when you were doing your vending machine job? I mean, how many lives did you touch? Maybe somebody thinks back to the day that vending machine guy came by and said an encouraging word.
That is entirely possible. And I'm sitting here in Sigourney, which is a town that I actually really like Sigourney. And that goes back to my vending machine days when I filled the pop machines at Bender Foundry. Okay. And that's a great story. The first day that I came to Bender Foundry, I had been I was at a hotel somewhere else, and hotel vending machines did not move a lot of product. Okay. So I had like 3 cases of outdated Mountain Dew. It was like the weird stuff too. They're like the pitch black Mountain Dew. Do you remember that?
Kind of, yeah.
Do you miss pitch black Mountain Dew?
Nope.
Live Wire, the orange flavor, which I think they still have, right?
I'm not sure.
And there was a red Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
So I had 3 cases of Mountain Dew that was out of date that I couldn't sell anymore. So I rolled into Bender Foundry and I was like, hey, who wants some out of date Mountain Dew? And from that day forward, I think I was the most popular guy in the factory. And so I made a lot of friends there. And just like every time I came into Bender Foundry, I felt good. So if there's anybody in Bender Foundry that remembers me, say hi in the comment section, and I remember you too. But yeah, that job I got the opportunity to drive to a lot of small towns in southeast Iowa and kind of fall in love with those towns, and I've been praying for some of those towns ever since. And I went to Albia and Williamsburg, and a lot of fun things came out of that.
Yeah.
And I got out of that job as fast as I could, honestly. But for that period of time in my life, it worked in ways that I never imagined that it would work. So, yeah, weird little story from my life. I did that for about 1.5 years.
Okay.
And I hated almost every minute of it. Except for my experiences at Bender Foundry and some other places. Like here was a fun one. I filled the vending machines up at it's Monsanto in Williamsburg now. It was Holden's back then. And at certain times of years, I'd be in the break room when there were a lot of migrant workers. And so I'd try out my Spanish, and they would give me breakfast burritos, and they'd be loaded with jalapenos, and I think it was kind of a joke. Like, let's see if we can get the gringo's face to burn off. One time they were having soup, and I was like, ooh, the soup smells good. And they were like, hey, you want some soup? So I sat down to have a bowl of soup, and I'm eating this soup, and I said, what's in this? And they said, you don't want to know. I said, no, what's in it? And they said, you don't want to know. And I said, no, seriously, what's in it? And they said, cow stomach. So I had cow stomach soup with some migrant workers, and I just love that memory. And it wasn't that great, Yeah. So you go to places. So yeah, we're spies. Kingdom of God spies. And I think that's an okay place to wrap up today. But I will say, if you're in the Wellman area and you're looking for a church, our motto is God, friends, fun. And that's kind of what we do. So if you're looking for a church, I hope you'll check us out. You can check us out on Facebook too. Watch a service before you come. I know it's scary to walk into a new place, so maybe a Facebook message is a good place to kind of try us out a little bit. So anyway, we'll see you around southeast Iowa, and we'll get together and have a bowl of cow stomach soup.
On that note, we do thank New Life Community Church in Wellman for being our sponsor. Aaron, we'll see you next week.
All right.